Hello everyone, long time no see. My name is Andre. I play at the 500 and 1000 limits, and my hourly rate is $185. Today we're analyzing BvB single raise pots. And here we have a board like this with a queen and a 5. And right away I want to say that on this kind of board, the most EV profitable sizing that's usually used is the overbet. I also added a small sizing just in case to check, and I'll explain why an overbet is used here. It's used here because we have a significant advantage in terms of nuts. That is, we have more 2 pairs and sets. Accordingly, because of this, an overbet will be used very often, and also the opponent's range is not indifferent to our bets. So, if we make a large bet here, the opponent will call with flushes and straights anyway. Therefore, when you feel like betting pot here, in reality, we're not extracting enough value. I don't use a 14 BB sizing here, I use an 11 BB sizing. This is because I want to get paid by all ace-x hands, not just the ace-x hands, meaning for example the owner of 67 combinations, partially at 11 big blinds. They all call, but with a bigger bet some of them still fold, so I put them in the calling range. And accordingly I have more motivation to use a larger sizing than a smaller one. A small sizing. I also bet here, and I don't see many check raises, which is why I have a strong motivation to use a small sizing with my medium strength hands, my draws, my weak top pairs, and my worst hands, and so on. So overall that's roughly the picture. So for the value bet, I use all my strong top pairs, strong gut shots, flush draws, and so on. Well, except for aces, obviously because they block the main calling range. And I also bet with the main blockers to my opponent's sets and 2 pairs, meaning blockers to BB's 2 pairs. And what does this lead to? I have a certain layer of checks. It's not really strictly necessary, but it is there. So in order not to memorize this part, I usually just send it to check more often. At the same time, yes, I check some of the second pairs, the medium ones, but it depends on the opponent. That is, if the opponent is very much a calling station, meaning he will call here a lot, let's say all the hands like Jack 7 suited, Bogdan FTT, or even T7 suited, Bogdan FTT, accordingly, I have more motivation to bet my house X's because I just start value betting him. A weak range. Overall, when constructing the range here, and if we talk about overbets, the top by equity, we can again see that our top range goes all the way down to 10-9. Sometimes there are even more, yes, and that's basically it. And also, since this is a polarized site, we need to have the bottom of the range, and the bottom of our range is built around the 5. So this entire part here is the bottom of our range, but at the same time this bottom somehow connects to the board, in the sense that we can sometimes hit something or have some potential with these combinations, right? That's why we play them both for overbet and for a small sizing as well. So accordingly we play everything. The fact that there are backdoors and that later we can pick up some draws. Basically this applies to our entire range. In fact, King 7 is the kind of hand that doesn't fit anywhere at all. It doesn't make any kind of double-sided gut shot, and it only has a backdoor straight draw. In other words, it doesn't have enough equity. More precisely, it has too much equity to be used as a bluff and too little equity to somehow beat the opponent's range. If we talk about defense, that is, when we're defending in the big blind against opponents, what do we most often see? Most often, what happens here is that people either bet small or 3/4 pot. That is, I never see a pot-sized bet here. It's a very rare situation for someone to bet the pot here. But most often, really, it's 3/4. And overall, the range hasn't really changed much. It has shifted more from this part to here. More towards 9 Jack and Queen. And accordingly, if the opponent bets 3/4, let's say he's playing by the solver, our defense is as linear as possible. We don't make anything up, we don't pull off any unnecessary moves. In fact, we don't even have a raise here. Basically, if the opponent uses a small sizing here, then we do have raises. Again, they're also tied to the range around the 5. That is, we don't play raises with Jack 10, a lot of them, King, Jack, or 10. We actually don't need these combinations, because most of the time it turns out that part of this range will be blocked by the opponent's bet. And what I mean is that when the opponent doesn't bet here for a small bet, we are more likely to be able to collect this part. Because the opponent doesn't have any sweet combinations, those that don't block our advances. Accordingly, that's why our raises are built around the 5, so that we don't end up being blocked. And overall, otherwise, our defense is also quite linear, but there are such combinations as 9-7, which have a very low equity of about 19% and realization of 5.6%. If we look at the realization of our range as a whole, so when it comes to equity realization, you can see that, in fact, things are pretty grim for us here. That is, it's very hard for us to defend, although things aren't perfect there either, but it's better. So our main realization comes from ace-x hands. And queen x plus 5s, and this part with the gut shots also realizes pretty well overall. So as for the rest, the hands we call here like weak flush draws with an 8 or 9, that's pretty weak. And the equity and the hands that we call with here, it's because we're basically forced to do so. That is, they need to somehow defend against being exploited, and our range also requires protection. And accordingly they call, but it seems to me that Jack 2-4 is much more promising here in terms of protection, because you can make gut shots in both directions. If we decide to make the call right here, and the 10 comes on the board on the turn, we might pick up a strong potential for a flush draw, and maybe we can continue playing the hand all the way until the river. Oh, I mean play donk bets, sorry. Use some raises maybe. So yes, we do have a small portion of raises with these combinations. So accordingly, if we raise here, then there's a call, and then say some card comes out, just hypothetically, and we block 2-4, which the opponent doesn't have, and Jack-Jack, they will keep bluffing with those hands. And the EV realization there is 3 million, but that's obviously a glitch, kind of funny. But overall, that's roughly how the range construction will go on this kind of board structure. Boards like ace, king, or ace, Jack X will also fit here. Let's not always take ace jack with a flush draw, because a flush draw forces us to play for a small size. Yes, so ace jack is already out of the picture, because on the big blind, ace jack offsuit is more often present. They all tend to be there. So accordingly, there's not as much of an advantage in 2-pair hands anymore. If you apply a filter, well, although overall there are still twice as many 2-pair hands, it's assumed for some reason that you should play a small size with this part of the range, because there are still top 2-pair hands like ace-jack. So overall, that's probably it, and that's our main exploit. If we're sitting on the small blind, this is a game for overbetting, and we must use this exploit against the big blind. That is, we should build our combinations around the lower card through raises, if these are small slices. And accordingly, we also use overbetting through the lower card. That's it, I think. Thanks everyone, goodbye.